The soft morning sunlight crept across the polished floors of Seoul's Defense Command Center, casting long shadows that danced between the busy personnel rushing through the halls. Admiral Je-ho Park stood motionless before the massive holographic display that dominated the central chamber, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he studied the strange formations appearing beyond Mars' orbit. The control room buzzed with activity as technicians and officers worked at their stations, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of quantum interfaces. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife as more unknown vessels continued to appear on their screens. Lieutenant Hae-Yun Lee sat at her communications station, her dark eyes focused intently on the readings before her. She had been monitoring deep space transmissions for the past 6 hours, ever since the first anomalous signatures had been detected. The objects had simply appeared, as if stepping out of nowhere, their energy patterns unlike anything in Earth's extensive databases. "Admiral, I'm counting 67 vessels now," reported Captain Min Park from the tactical station. "Their formation suggests military organization. These aren't civilian ships." Je-ho nodded slowly, his expression remaining calm despite the gravity of the situation. He had spent 40 years in Earth's defense forces, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for this moment. Humanity had long wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it wasn't arriving with a peaceful greeting. "What's their current speed and heading?" Je-ho asked, his voice steady. "They're maintaining position just beyond Mars' orbit, sir. No movement toward Earth yet, but their weapons systems appear to be powered up." The holographic display updated in real time, showing detailed scans of the alien vessels. They were massive. The smallest was roughly the size of an aircraft carrier, while the largest could have housed a small city. Their hulls gleamed with an odd metallic sheen that seemed to shift colors under different angles of light. A sudden alert chime cut through the background noise of the command center. Lieutenant Hae-Yun's fingers flew across her interface as new data streamed in. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, in perfect Earth standard." Je-ho straightened his uniform. "Put it through, Lieutenant." The message that filled the command center speakers was unlike anything they had expected. The voice was artificially smooth, devoid of emotion or inflection. "To the governing authorities of Earth, your world has been chosen for integration into the Dominion. Submit to our authority or be eliminated. You have 48 hours to surrender your world." The message repeated 3 times before falling silent. The command center remained quiet for several long moments as the implications sank in. "Sir," Captain Min spoke up, "I'm detecting power surges from their fleet. They're charging something big, possibly weapons systems." Je-ho turned to his communications officer. "Lieutenant Hae-Yun, contact the Global Defense Council immediately. Tell them we need an emergency session. Then get me a direct line to all major military commands worldwide." As Hae-Yun carried out his orders, Je-ho walked closer to the holographic display, studying the alien vessels more carefully. Something about their configuration bothered him. Their positioning seemed almost careless, as if they didn't consider Earth's defenses worthy of concern. "Begin full planetary defense protocols," Je-ho ordered. "I want all orbital platforms at ready status and planetary shields warmed up. And get me our best first contact specialists. We need to attempt communication before this escalates further." The next hour passed in a blur of activity. Military bases worldwide went on high alert, while civilian authorities began quiet preparations for possible evacuation scenarios. Scientists pored over the data streaming in from the alien fleet, trying to understand their technology and capabilities. In the command center, Je-ho received a priority message from Dr. Sang-Min Kang, Earth's leading expert in advanced propulsion systems. The scientist's face appeared on a secondary display, his expression excited despite the circumstances. "Admiral, you need to see this," Sang-Min said, transmitting data to the command center. "These vessels, their energy signatures don't make sense. They're radiating power in patterns that violate several laws of physics. Unless. Unless what, Doctor? Unless they're using some form of quantum field manipulation we haven't seen before. But if that's the case, their systems might be vulnerable to. The scientist's transmission cut off abruptly as new alarms blared through the command center. Lieutenant Hayum's voice rose above the noise. Admiral, the alien fleet, they're moving. On the main display, the massive vessels had begun to shift formation. They were spreading out in a pattern that any military commander would recognize. An attack formation. Jaiho's voice remained steady as he gave his orders. Alert all commands. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. All defense forces to battle stations. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. The morning sun continued to rise over Seoul, its warm light a stark contrast to the cold fear spreading across the planet. Humanity's first contact with alien life had arrived not with a handshake, but with an ultimatum. And as Admiral Jaiho Park watched the alien fleet begin its slow advance toward Earth, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far larger than anyone could imagine. In the depths of Earth's most advanced quantum research facility, Dr. Sang-Min Kang hadn't slept for 36 hours. His eyes were red-rimmed as he stared at the stream of data flowing across his holographic displays. But his mind remained sharp. Something about the alien ship's energy signatures kept nagging at him, like a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit. The facility hummed with activity as scientists from around the world worked together, analyzing every bit of information they could gather about the Dominion fleet. Coffee cups littered the desks, and the air smelled of electronics and determination. "Run it again," Sang-Min told his assistant, rubbing his tired eyes. "Focus on the shield harmonics this time." As the new data appeared, Sang-Min suddenly sat up straight. His hands flew across the interface, bringing up comparison charts with Earth's experimental quantum resonance technology. The correlation was unmistakable. "This can't be right," he muttered, double-checking his calculations. But the numbers didn't lie. The Dominion's supposedly advanced shield technology operated on principles that made it catastrophically vulnerable to Earth's newest defensive systems. He immediately contacted the Global Defense Council. Within an hour, he stood before the world's leading military and scientific minds, his discovery displayed on the massive screens behind him. Their shield technology relies on quantum field manipulation, Sang-Min explained, pointing to the relevant data. But they're using an unstable configuration. Our experimental quantum resonance weapons could cause a cascade failure throughout their entire fleet. Admiral Jaiho Park leaned forward in his seat. "Are you saying we could defeat them?" "No," Sang-Min shook his head. "I'm saying we could accidentally destroy them completely. The reaction would be catastrophic. Their ships would literally tear themselves apart at the quantum level." The council chamber erupted in murmured discussions. Captain Yoona Kim, Earth's chief diplomat, rose from her seat. Her presence commanded attention, her years of experience handling delicate negotiations evident in her composed demeanor. "We have a moral obligation to warn them," she stated firmly. "Regardless of their hostile intentions, we cannot let them walk into annihilation without at least trying to prevent it." Some council members disagreed, arguing that they should use this advantage to protect Earth. But Yoon-ah's argument prevailed. Humanity would attempt to save their would-be conquerors from their own oversight. Yoon-ah worked with Sang-Min to craft a message that would be clear and technically accurate without revealing too much about Earth's capabilities. They transmitted their warning to the Dominion fleet, explaining the dangerous resonance patterns in their shield systems. The response came within minutes, and it was broadcast throughout the council chamber. "Your primitive deceptions cannot save you. The Dominion has conquered 1,000 worlds. Your pitiful attempts at manipulation only confirm your species' unworthiness." Yoona tried again, this time addressing their commander directly. "Please verify our findings. The physics is sound. We have no desire for conflict, but we cannot guarantee your safety if you proceed." The Dominion's second response was even more dismissive. Your concern for our safety is noted and rejected. Prepare for integration or elimination. Your time grows short." In the silence that followed, Sang-min turned to Admiral Jao. "They truly don't believe it's possible. Their arrogance is going to get their people killed. How long would it take to modify our orbital defense platforms with the quantum resonance technology?" Jai-ho asked. "With a global effort, maybe 36 hours. But Admiral, even a test firing could have devastating consequences. We don't know if we can control the cascade effect once it starts." Yuna joined their discussion, her expression grave. "We tried diplomacy. We offered them truth and received contempt. What happens now is on their heads, not ours." Admiral Ji-ho nodded slowly, then opened a channel to all Earth's defense forces. "This is Admiral Park. Begin immediate modification of all orbital platforms with quantum resonance technology. Priority 1. We have less than 36 hours to prepare our defenses." As the orders went out, Sang-min returned to his calculations, trying to find a way to control the devastating power they might soon be forced to unleash. Yuna made one final attempt to contact the Dominion, but their channels were now closed. The warning had been given and ignored. Now, as the deadline for Earth's surrender drew closer, humanity prepared for a battle they had tried to prevent. The morning sun would rise again, but whether it would shine on a free Earth or a conquered one remained to be seen. Across the planet, people watched the skies, unaware that their salvation might lie not in their weapons' strength, but in their enemies' overconfidence. The next day would reveal whether the Dominion's dismissal of humanity's warning would prove to be their final mistake. Time slipped away like sand through an hourglass as Earth's population moved with surprising order into the vast network of underground shelters. Colonel Ta-Won Choi stood in the Global Emergency Command Center, watching millions of glowing dots on the tactical display as they tracked the movement of civilians worldwide. "Status report on Sector 7, he called out, noting a slowdown in the evacuation rate. "Heavy rain has delayed transport in the region," his assistant reported. "Local authorities are deploying all-weather vehicles to assist." Taiwan nodded, making quick adjustments to the evacuation schedule. The underground shelters were marvels of engineering, built over decades as part of Earth's disaster preparation plans. Now they would serve their true purpose, protecting humanity from an alien threat. Miles above the planet's surface, Professor Mai Risong floated in zero gravity aboard the primary orbital defense platform. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she calibrated the quantum resonance emitters. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the climate control of her suit. "Hand me the phase calibrator," she called to her assistant. "We need to adjust the wavelength by 0.003%. The work was delicate and dangerous. One wrong calculation could cause the defensive systems to backfire, potentially destroying the very platforms they were trying to modify. Mireille had been working for 20 hours straight, but she couldn't rest. Not yet. "Professor, Commander Jin Woo-han is requesting an update on our progress," one of her team members announced. Mireille glanced at the communicator. "Tell him we're at 87% completion. We'll make the deadline, but only if everything goes perfectly." In the void between Earth and Mars, Commander Jin Woo-han stood on the bridge of the EDS Defender, Earth's most advanced warship. His fleet was spread out in a defensive formation, watching the Dominion vessels that loomed in the distance like dark mountains against the stars. All ships maintained position. Jin Woo ordered, "Remember your training. We just need to hold them back long enough for the platforms to be modified." The crew worked with quiet efficiency, running combat drills and system checks. They all knew their role in the coming battle. They were the shield that would protect Earth's orbital platforms until the modifications could be completed. Back on Earth, Taiwan received reports from shelter complexes worldwide. Sydney complex at 90% capacity. London reporting all systems green. New York underground network fully operational. He allowed himself a moment of pride in humanity's preparation. These shelters weren't just holes in the ground. They were underground cities, capable of sustaining millions of people for months if necessary. Each complex had its own power generation, food production, and water recycling systems. In orbit, Mayre's team reached a critical point in their modifications, beginning power-up sequence for final testing, she announced. The platform hummed beneath her feet as energy flowed through the new quantum resonance systems. Wavelength stable, her assistant reported. Resonance patterns matching theoretical models. Mayre watched the readings carefully. This was the moment of truth. Either their modifications would work, or they would fail spectacularly. The numbers climbed steadily, and she allowed herself to breathe again when they reached optimal levels. Platform 1 modifications complete, she reported to Global Command, beginning upgrade sequence for remaining platforms. Jinwoo received the update with relief, but his attention was fixed on the Dominion fleet. They had begun to move, adjusting their formation in what appeared to be preparation for their attack. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. They're getting ready to make their move. The tension mounted across Earth's defensive network as the deadline drew closer. Taiwan supervised the final stages of civilian evacuation. Mayre's teams raced to complete the platform modifications, and Jinwoo's fleet stood ready to face the first wave of the alien assault. In the last hour before the Dominion's deadline, Mayre made her final adjustments to the orbital defense network. Her hands were steady despite her exhaustion, knowing that the fate of humanity might depend on the precision of her work. All platforms show in green status, she reported. Quantum resonance systems are online and synchronized. The pieces were in place. Earth had done everything possible to prepare for what was coming. As the deadline approached, millions of people huddled in underground shelters, while brave men and women in orbit stood ready to defend their world. The next few hours would determine the fate of humanity. Either their preparations would be enough, or Earth would face the greatest challenge in its history. The countdown to confrontation had begun. The Dominion fleet moved with frightening speed, their massive ships cutting through space like dark arrows. The first blast of their energy weapons lit up Earth's atmosphere with brilliant purple streaks, turning night into day across half the planet. The planetary shields flared bright blue under the assault, holding firm against the alien onslaught. Captain Soo-Jin Bug sat in her fighter's cockpit, her hands steady on the controls as she led Phantom Squadron into position. Her voice remained calm as she addressed her pilots. Remember your training. Stay in formation. These aliens may have bigger ships, but we've practiced for this moment. The squadron of advanced Earth fighters moved like a perfectly choreographed dance, weaving between the massive alien vessels. Their smaller size and superior maneuverability gave them an advantage in close combat, allowing them to slip past the Dominion's primary weapon systems. In the Seoul Defense Command Center, Admiral Jae-ho Park watched the battle unfold on the massive tactical display. Hundreds of engagement points lit up across the solar system as Earth's defense forces met the alien assault. Shield strength at 92%, reported Lieutenant Hae-yun. The modifications are holding. Soo-Jin's squadron struck hard and fast, their advanced weapons targeting the weak points they had identified in the Dominion ships. While their attacks couldn't penetrate the alien shields completely, they forced the massive vessels to divide their attention. Phantom 2. Break right. Incoming fire. Soo-Jin called out, rolling her fighter through a series of evasive maneuvers. Energy beams from the Dominion ships filled space around them, turning the void into a deadly light show. Back on Earth, cities activated their local defense barriers, creating additional layers of protection beneath the planetary shields. The underground shelters hummed with power as their systems maintained life support for millions of evacuated civilians. Admiral, the Dominion is launching fighter craft of their own, Captain Min reported, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Jae-ho nodded, watching as swarms of alien fighters emerged from their carrier ships. Relay to all squadrons. Maintain defensive positions. Do not pursue enemy fighters beyond our support range. Soo-Jin's voice crackled over the command channel. Phantom Squadron engaging enemy fighters. These things are fast. but their turns are wide. We can outmaneuver them. The space around Earth became a battlefield unlike anything in human history. Earth fighters danced between energy beams and alien vessels, while orbital defense platforms provided covering fire. The Dominion pressed their attack with relentless force, but Earth's defenses held firm. "Sir, enemy capital ships are moving into a new attack formation," Heian reported. "They appear to be concentrating their forces for a focused strike." Jai-Ho studied the tactical display, noting how the Dominion ships were positioning themselves. "They're going to try to overwhelm a single point in our shields. Alert all commands. Prepare for maximum defensive concentration on my mark." Su Jin led her squadron through another series of attack runs, their weapons finding gaps in the alien fighters' defenses. "Phantom Squadron, form up on me. We need to disrupt their formation before they can complete their alignment." The battle reached a fever pitch as both sides gave everything they had. Earth's fighters struck again and again, while the Dominion's superior numbers began to show their effect. Several Earth vessels took heavy damage, their crews fighting to maintain control. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is almost in position," Heian called out. "Their weapon systems are charging to maximum power." Jai-Ho's voice carried across all command channels. "All units, maintain defensive positions. Wait for my signal. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for." The tension in the command center was palpable as they watched the Dominion fleet prepare their concentrated assault. Everything hinged on timing. If they acted too soon, they would waste their advantage. If they waited too long, the aliens might break through their defenses. Su Jin's squadron regrouped after another successful attack run. Her fighters had taken damage, but they remained combat effective. "Phantom Squadron standing by, Admiral. Ready to engage on your command." The Dominion ships glowed with gathered energy, their weapons preparing to deliver what they surely thought would be a killing blow. But unknown to them, Earth's forces waited with their own surprise, one that would change the course of the battle in ways the aliens couldn't imagine. Jai-Ho watched the enemy fleet, waiting for the perfect moment. Everything they had prepared for, everything they had modified and planned, would come down to the next few minutes. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and he knew exactly what needed to be done. "All units, stand ready," he commanded. "The real battle is about to begin." The moment of truth arrived as Professor Myrisong stood at her control station aboard the primary orbital platform. Her fingers hovered over the quantum interface as she waited for the command. Years of research, months of preparation, and hours of modification had led to this moment. "Enemy fleet at optimal range," reported her assistant. "All platforms showing ready status." Admiral Jai-Ho's voice came through clear on the command channel. "Professor Song, you have authorization. Begin the sequence." Myray took a deep breath and entered the activation codes. The quantum resonance weapons powered up silently, their energy signatures hidden beneath the chaos of battle. The modified platforms hummed with power as they prepared to release their carefully tuned wavelengths. "Quantum resonance field initializing," Myray announced, watching the energy levels climb. "Field strength at 20%, 40%, 60%. In space, Captain Su Jin Baek led her squadron away from the Dominion fleet. They had received their orders to pull back, though they didn't know exactly why. The alien vessels loomed behind them, their weapons gathering energy for what they planned to be their final assault. "Field strength at 80%, Myray continued. "Resonance pattern stable. Preparing for full power emission." The Dominion ships showed no sign that they detected anything unusual. Their massive weapons continued charging, the combined power of their fleet preparing to punch through Earth's defenses. "Field strength at maximum. Releasing quantum resonance wave. Now." Myray pressed the final activation key. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, like ripples in a pond, invisible waves of quantum energy spread out from Earth's defense platforms. The effect on the Dominion fleet was immediate and devastating. Their shield harmonics, vulnerable to the precise wavelength Earth had discovered, began to fluctuate wildly. Ship after ship reported power failures as their energy systems went into cascade failure. By all the stars, Su Jin whispered as she watched through her fighter's viewport. The mighty Dominion vessels, which had seemed so invincible moments before, now drifted helplessly in space. Their weapons powered down, their engines failed, and their communications fell silent. In the Seoul Defense Command Center, Admiral Ji-ho watched the tactical display with a mixture of relief and amazement. The red dots representing enemy ships were turning gray as they lost power, their threat level dropping to 0. "Report," he ordered. 93% of enemy fleet showing complete power failure. Lieutenant Hae-yun responded. "Their shields are down. Weapons offline. They're helpless." "Sir." The quantum resonance effect spread through the Dominion fleet like a wave of technological paralysis. Ships that had conquered 1,000 worlds now floated dead in space, their crews trapped inside powerless vessels. May Ray monitored the cascade effect carefully, making sure it didn't spread beyond their intended targets. Resonance field stable. Effect is contained to Dominion vessel frequencies. Earth ships and platforms unaffected. In the command center, Captain Min's voice carried a note of disbelief. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from the Dominion fleet. Their life support systems are running on emergency power. They're requesting assistance." Ji-ho straightened his uniform. "Order all Earth vessels to begin rescue operations. Priority to ships with failing life support. We may have defeated them, but we won't let them die." Su Jin's squadron took the lead in the rescue efforts, their fighters guiding Earth's rescue ships to the stricken alien vessels. The Dominion crews, faced with the choice between death and surrender, chose to live. May Ray watched from her station as the massive alien ships were slowly secured. The quantum resonance weapons had worked better than anyone had hoped, ending the battle with minimal loss of life on either side. "Power down the resonance field," Ji-ho ordered. "But keep the systems ready. We don't know if they have reinforcements coming." As Earth's forces began the enormous task of securing and boarding the disabled Dominion fleet, a new message arrived from the alien commander. Gone was the arrogance and contempt of their earlier communications. Now they spoke with humility, requesting terms of surrender. The morning sun rose over Earth, shining on a planet that had faced its greatest challenge and emerged victorious. Not through superior firepower or overwhelming force, but through intelligence, preparation, and the wisdom to warn their enemies of the very weakness that would lead to their defeat. May Ray finally allowed herself to relax slightly, though her fingers remained near the controls. They had won the battle, but she knew this was just the beginning. Earth would need to be ready for whatever came next. In the days following the Dominion fleet's surrender, Earth's military and scientific teams worked around the clock to secure and study the alien vessels. Dr. Sang-Min Kang led the research effort, his excitement growing with each new discovery aboard the captured ships. The massive alien command vessel became his temporary laboratory, its corridors now filled with Earth scientists carefully documenting everything they found. Sang-Min stood in what appeared to be the ship's main data center, surrounded by alien computer terminals that hummed with backup power. "The architecture of their systems is fascinating," he told his team as they worked to interface Earth technology with the alien computers. "Their data storage methods are far more advanced than ours, but their security protocols are surprisingly basic." Lieutenant Hae-yun Lee and her translation team worked alongside the scientists, making breakthrough after breakthrough in understanding the alien language and technology. Their first major success came when they decoded the ship's navigation systems. "Dr. Sang-Min," Hae-yun called out, her voice echoing through the metallic chamber. "You need to see this immediately." Sang-Min hurried over to her station, where a holographic display showed what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light dotted the display, with various symbols and markings he didn't recognize. "We've managed to decode their stellar cartography database," Hae-yun explained, her fingers moving across the interface. Each of these marked systems represents a world they've conquered or colonized. The dates go back over 1,000 years. Sang-min stared at the display in amazement. How many worlds? Over 3,000 conquered systems, Hei-yun replied quietly. Some were peaceful submissions, but most— She paused, her expression grim. Most were taken by force. The discovery sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. Admiral Jeho Park personally visited the command vessel to see the evidence for himself. As he studied the star maps, his military training helped him recognize the strategic patterns in the Dominion's expansion. They're methodical, he observed. Each conquered system became a stepping stone to the next. Earth would have been their foothold in this sector of space. The translation team made another breakthrough when they accessed the Dominion's historical records. Hei-yun worked tirelessly to decode the massive database, her eyes growing wide as she began to understand the scope of their discovery. The Dominion has never failed in a conquest, she reported to the assembled leaders. Their technology and tactics were developed over centuries of warfare. They became so confident in their superiority that they stopped improving their defensive systems hundreds of years ago. Sang-min added his own findings to the briefing. That's why they were vulnerable to our quantum resonance weapons. They never imagined a primitive species could develop technology that would counter their shields. As they delved deeper into the alien databases, they found records of resistance movements and rebellions across the conquered worlds. The Dominion had crushed each one, their technological superiority making them seemingly invincible, until they reached Earth. Look at this. Hei-yun pointed to a particular section of data. Their leaders were so certain of victory that they had already planned how they would use Earth's resources. They were going to turn our planet into a forward base for further conquest. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The very arrogance that had led the Dominion to dismiss Earth's warning had been their undoing. Their 1,000-year history of unbroken conquest had ended not with a massive space battle, but with a precisely calculated scientific response. Admiral Jeho organized teams to begin cataloging all the captured technology and information. Every piece of data we recover could help us protect Earth from other threats, he said. And perhaps help those other worlds the Dominion conquered. Sang-min and Hei-yun continued their work, each new discovery adding to their understanding of the galaxy and Earth's place in it. The star maps showed countless civilizations, some more advanced than Earth, others less so, all living under Dominion rule. We're not just studying their technology, Sang-min realized as he worked. We're learning about our galactic community. Earth isn't alone anymore, and we have a responsibility to help those other worlds if we can. The captured Dominion fleet became humanity's window to the stars, each decoded database and examined system adding to their knowledge. Earth had not only defended itself, it had gained the means to reach out to other civilizations and perhaps make allies instead of conquests. As the sun set on another day of discovery, Sang-min and Hei-yun shared a quiet moment looking at the star map. Somewhere out there, thousands of worlds waited, not yet knowing that the Dominion's grip on the galaxy had finally been broken. The vast alien command ship floated silently in Earth orbit as teams of scientists and military personnel moved through its corridors. The vessel's emergency lights cast a soft blue glow, creating long shadows as Dr. Sang-min Kang made his way to the main computer core. The captured ship still held many secrets, its alien technology both fascinating and mysterious. Sang-min's footsteps echoed as he entered the data center, where Lieutenant Hei-yun Lee and her translation team were already hard at work. Any progress with the main database? He asked, setting down his equipment beside one of the alien terminals. Hei-yun nodded without looking up from her screen. We've managed to access their base systems. The encryption was complex, but their actual security protocols were surprisingly simple. Sang-min connected his analysis tools to the alien computer, watching as streams of data began flowing across his display. At first, it seemed like standard ship operations data, power systems, life support, weapons configurations. But then something caught his eye. "Wait a moment," he muttered, his fingers flying across the interface. "This data structure is different. It's not ship systems at all." The holographic display suddenly filled with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars glowed softly, with many marked by special symbols and notations in the Dominion's language. "Hey Yun, I need you here right now," Sang-min called out, his voice tight with excitement. The translation expert hurried over, her eyes widening as she saw the display. "These are navigation markers, colony markers, and these," she paused, her expression growing serious. "These are conquest markers." Together, they began decoding the massive star map. Each marked system told a story, some of peaceful submission to the Dominion, others of violent conquest. The dates stretched back over 1,000 years of expansion. "Look at the pattern," Sang-min pointed out. They moved methodically through the galaxy, using each conquered world as a stepping stone to the next. Earth would have been their foothold in this sector. Haeyun's team worked quickly to decode more of the alien database. The truth they uncovered was staggering. The Dominion had never known defeat, their superior technology crushing all resistance. Until they reached Earth. Their overconfidence was their weakness, Haeyun said softly. They stopped improving their defensive systems centuries ago. They never imagined a primitive species could develop something like our quantum resonance weapons. Word of their discovery spread quickly. Admiral Jeho Park arrived personally to see the evidence, his weathered face thoughtful as he studied the star maps. "How many worlds?" he asked. "Over 3,000 systems under their control," Sang-min reported. Some were advanced civilizations, others barely space-capable. The Dominion conquered them all. The implications were enormous. Earth hadn't just defended itself. It had broken the grip of an empire that spanned a significant portion of the galaxy. The defeated Dominion ships in orbit stood as proof that even the mightiest could fall. As they delved deeper into the alien database, they found detailed plans for Earth's conquest. The Dominion had been so certain of victory that they had already decided how they would use Earth's resources and population. They were going to turn Earth into a forward base, Haeyun explained, as she decoded more files. They would have used our planet to launch even more conquests. Admiral Jeho organized teams to begin cataloging everything they found. Every piece of technology, every bit of data could help protect Earth, and possibly help free other worlds from Dominion control. Sang-min and Haeyun kept working through the night, each new discovery adding to their understanding. The star maps showed them something else too. Earth wasn't alone anymore. There were countless civilizations out there, some more advanced, others less so, all part of a larger galactic community. As dawn broke over the horizon, casting new light on the captured alien vessels, Earth's scientists and leaders began to realize the true scope of their victory. They hadn't just saved their own world, they had shattered an empire that had seemed unbreakable for 1,000 years. The real work was just beginning. They had the means to reach out to other worlds now, to offer help instead of conquest. The future held new possibilities, new challenges, and new responsibilities. Earth had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and nothing would ever be the same. The months following Earth's victory over the Dominion brought changes that no one could have imagined. Space became alive with signals as oppressed civilizations, hearing of the Dominion's defeat, reached out to Earth. Their messages carried hope, curiosity, and a desire for alliance with the world that had achieved the impossible. Admiral Jeho Park stood in the newly constructed Galactic Communications Center, watching as teams of specialists worked to respond to the flood of incoming transmissions. The facility hummed with activity as Earth took its first steps as a major galactic power. Another delegation arriving from the Centauri systems, Lieutenant Haeyun Lee reported, looking up from her station. They're requesting permission to establish an embassy. Around them, the fruits of their victory were evident. Captured Dominion technology had accelerated Earth's development by decades. Professor Myra Song led the integration efforts, carefully adapting alien advances to work with human systems. The quantum shield modifications are complete on the first fleet of diplomatic vessels, Mayray announced, her eyes bright with pride. We can begin peaceful outreach to the nearest star systems. Dr. Sang-Min Kang had transformed the former Dominion command ship into Earth's premier research facility. His team worked tirelessly to understand and improve upon the alien technology they had captured. Each star system we contact shares new knowledge, Sang-Min explained during the morning briefing. The Dominion kept their subjects isolated from each other. Now that they can communicate freely, scientific progress is accelerating across the galaxy. Captain Su-Jin Baek, now commander of Earth's first diplomatic fleet, prepared her crews for their historic mission. Her ships would carry Earth's message of friendship to worlds that had known only conquest and submission. We go not as conquerors, but as equals, she reminded her pilots during training. Our strength comes from cooperation, not domination. Colonel Ta Wen-choi oversaw the transformation of the underground shelters into cultural exchange centers, where humans could meet and learn from alien visitors in a safe, controlled environment. Commander Jin Woo-han led the effort to establish a galactic defense network, working with freed worlds to create a system of mutual protection against any future threats. Captain Yuna Kim found her diplomatic skills in constant demand as Earth navigated its new role in the galaxy. Her ability to bridge cultural gaps proved invaluable as humanity built relationships with diverse alien species. One morning, exactly 1 year after the Dominion's defeat, the team gathered in Admiral Jaiho's office. The sun was rising over Seoul, its light reflecting off the hulls of friendly alien ships now orbiting Earth. "Did you ever imagine this?" Mireille asked, gesturing to the view. "A year ago, we were facing extinction. Now we're helping to rebuild the galaxy." "We succeeded because we worked together," Sang-Min replied. "Each of us played our part, but it was our unity that made the difference." Hae-eun smiled as she monitored the incoming transmissions. The latest reports show 57 worlds have joined the alliance. More are requesting membership every day. "And the Dominion prisoners?" Ta Wen asked. "Most have chosen to stay," Jin Woo reported. "They're helping us understand their technology and learning a better way of life in return." Su-Jin's voice came through the comm system. "Admiral, the first diplomatic fleet is ready for departure. We await your final authorization." Jaiho looked at each member of his team, remembering how far they had come. From that first terrifying contact to their current position as guardians of galactic freedom, they had transformed not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. "We tried to warn them," he said quietly, echoing his words from a year ago. "But sometimes the best lessons are learned the hard way. And now we have the chance to teach a better way." The sun climbed higher, its light spreading across a changed Earth. In orbit, ships from a dozen worlds moved in harmony. On the surface, humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other, building a future based on cooperation rather than conquest. Earth had emerged from its trial by fire not just victorious, but transformed. The planet that had once been targeted for conquest had become a beacon of hope, a protector of freedom, and a leader in a new galactic age. As Jaiho gave the order to launch the diplomatic fleet, he knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast, full of wonders and challenges they had yet to discover. But whatever came next, Earth would face it not alone, but as part of something greater, a community of worlds united in peace and mutual respect. The dawn of a new era had truly begun.